Okay, so today we're diving into a world where your house, well, it's not just a home, it's practically like, part of the family,
Mm.
and a really smart one.
It is kind of like stepping into the future. You walk in and the technology just sort of knows what you need before you even do.
Exactly. And someone has to set up all that magic. That's what we're looking at today, the smart home installer.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool job when you think about it. Like they're the ones who take all the latest gadgets and figure out how to make them actually work with our lives.
And we've got a bunch of these role catcher guides here to help us break it all down. They've got it all from like the skills you need to what your career path could look like.
It really is fascinating. It's this perfect blend of knowing about technology but also understanding people.
So no more fumbling around for a light switch or messing with the thermostat. It's like
Time for Melissa.
living through.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm guessing to make all that happen, it takes some serious skills.
Yeah.
So what does a smart home installer actually do all day?
It's a lot more than just plugging in a smart speaker, that's for sure. We're talking about like entire systems.
Well, like what kind of systems?
Think heating and AC, all the lights, security systems. I mean, you name it, they can probably connect it.
Wow, okay, that's pretty high tech.
Hmm.
So to work in that kind of role, I'm guessing you have to have some serious tech skills.
Yeah, you need to know a bit about computers, electronics, that kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
you might be dealing with wiring one minute, then some software issue in a security system the next.
So they have to know how to do it all.
Pretty much. They're like the bridge between like the physical stuff and the digital world.
They make sure it all works together.
Exactly.
But it's not just about the tech, is it? I mean, we've all been there when, technology is supposed to make things easier, but instead it just gets more complicated.
Yeah, for sure. That's where the people skills come in for a smart home installer. They don't just put stuff in, they've got to teach people how to use it.
They're like tech therapists.
Yeah,
They make you feel good about the technology, not intimidated.
exactly.
So say someone's listening to this and thinking, that's it. That's what I want to do. What does RoleCatcher say about how to get started in a field like that?
Well, you gotta get some experience. I mean, it's one thing to read about this stuff, but you gotta get your hands dirty.
So how do you do that? It's not like everyone has a smart mansion just waiting for them to, practice on.
Yeah. Well, RoleCatcher talks about a few ways to get started. Internships, apprenticeships, things like that.
So you can work with people who've been doing it a while, kind of learn the ropes.
Exactly.
And with an apprenticeship, you're actually out there doing it, not just reading about it in a book.
Yeah, and you know what else they say? Even just helping your friends or family with their tech can be good practice.
It's a win-win, right? They
Yeah.
get their tech working, and you get to learn on the job.
Right.
And let's be honest, who doesn't want to be the tech guru of their friends and family?
Exactly. Speaking of guru, RoleCatcher spends a lot of time on the actual skills you need, and it's interesting. It's this mix of technical stuff, but then also those really important people skills.
Yes, it's like you need both. You got to know the tech stuff backwards and forwards, but if you can't explain it to a normal person, what's the point?
That's so true, and RoleCatcher really emphasizes that, how important communication is in this kind of work.
Because not everyone's a tech whiz, right? You've got clients who are like scared of their own shadow when it comes to technology.
Totally. You might have someone who's never even used a smart home before, and you're walking them through the very basics.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you might have someone who's like built their own computer from scratch and wants to know every little detail.
Exactly. So you have to be able to talk to all of them. It's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. You got to figure out how each person learns best.
And how much they want to know.
Right.
Some people just want it to work. They don't care about the how or the why.
Right. And it's not just explaining how it works, but how to use it in a way that makes their life better.
Okay, so give me an example.
Let's say you put in this awesome home theater for someone. You could just hand them the remote and be like, figure it out. But it's way better to actually spend the time showing them how to use it.
Because what's the point of all that fancy tech if you don't know how to use it?
Exactly. You got to teach them how to get the most out of it.
So you're not just installing stuff, you're like a tech coach.
I like that.
But, okay, be honest. Even if you're great with people and great with tech, sometimes stuff just goes wrong, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. No matter how good you are, sometimes tech just has a mind of its own.
Like when it's the middle of summer and your smart thermostat suddenly decides it's time to crank up the heat.
Exactly. And that's where those problem-solving skills come in.
So it's more than just knowing how to install things. You've got to figure out why they're not working.
Yep. You got to think fast and be creative sometimes. RoleCatcher actually talks about this, how important it is to be a good problem solver in this job.
I bet they've got some good stories about that, about those moments where something goes totally haywire and the installer has to get creative to fix it.
Yeah, and they do. It's not always easy, that's for sure.
So we've talked about the hands-on stuff, the communication, the problem solving, but what about the actual technical skills? Like, what do you need to know?
Well, networking is a big one, like the internet and Wi-Fi and all that. I
Yeah.
got to make sure all the devices can talk to each other.
So you're like a digital air traffic controller, making sure all those signals are flowing smoothly.
I like that analogy. You got to understand how it all works, IP addresses, Wi-Fi signals, how to fix it when it breaks.
What else is important?
Security's huge. All these connected devices, it's got to be secure. So you need to know about cameras, motion detectors, all of that.
Oh, yeah, because what's the point of having a fancy smart home if anyone can hack into it?
Exactly. So it's not enough to just install it. You have to know how to make it secure and then show the homeowner how to keep it that way.
And I bet with all the voice assistants and AI stuff getting more and more common, you need to know about that too.
Absolutely. Like imagine a house that can basically run itself, learns your routines, all that.
That's kind of wild when you think about it.
It is, and it's only getting more advanced. But RoleCatcher also talks about how it's not always easy, this job.
What do they say?
Well, like any job, it has its downsides. They mention long hours, sometimes you're dealing with difficult clients, that kind of thing.
And I imagine there's a lot of physical work involved too.
Yeah, they mention that, crawling around in attics, running wires through walls, that kind of thing.
It's not like you're just sitting at a desk all day, right?
Not at all. It can be pretty physical. They talk about working in all kinds of weather, too.
Oh, yeah, I bet. You're out there, the heat, the cold, whatever it takes.
Exactly. But, for the right person, that's part of the appeal.
Totally. There's something about those hands-on jobs.
Yeah.
Like you get to actually see what you've accomplished.
Yeah, and it's really satisfying when you can solve a tricky problem for someone. Like you're making their life better, one smart light bulb at a time.
Exactly. But okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, sign me up.
Hmm.
Where do they go from here? What does RoleCatcher say about building a career out of this?
Well, one thing they really emphasize is that you got to be a lifelong learner.
What do you mean?
Like, technology never sits still, right? There are always new gadgets, new systems, new software updates. You can't just learn it once and then coast. You have to stay up to date.
So you're constantly taking classes, going to conferences, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just like reading articles online, watching videos, just staying curious about what's new.
So it's not just a job, it's got to be something you're actually interested in.
Definitely. Because the more you know, the more valuable you are as an installer.
That makes sense. And as you get more experience, what happens? Like, is it possible to move up in this kind of field?
Oh, for sure. RoleCatcher talks about how you might start out as like an assistant installer and then eventually work your way up to leading your own installations.
Okay, so you're in charge of the whole project.
Right. Or you could specialize in a certain area like home security or energy management.
So you become the expert in that one thing.
Exactly. Or some people even start their own businesses.
Oh, wow. So you could be your own boss. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And with how much everyone loves smart homes these days, there's definitely a market for it.
So you could build your own business around this whole idea of making homes smarter and more efficient.
Exactly. And maybe down the road, you even end up training the next generation of smart home installers.
It's like you're paying it forward.
Yeah.
You learned from someone, now you're passing that knowledge on.
Right. It's a pretty cool field to be in, that's for sure.
It sounds like it. So if you're the kind of person who loves gadgets, loves figuring out how things work, and loves helping people, this could be a really great fit.
Totally. And RoleCatcher has a ton of great information if you want to learn more about it.
So there you have it, folks, our deep dive into the world of smart home installers. We've talked about the skills you need, the challenges you might face, and even how to build a whole career out of it. So if you're ready to turn homes into high-tech havens, this might be your calling. Until next time, keep on innovating.